My name is Robert Findyson, and this is my first blog that I'm probably going to be publishing. I've done some others, and I might publish those as well from either early last year or late 2 years ago, 2018. Today is the 1st of January of 2020, and I believe that the end of the year is a good time for a review, and the beginning of the year is a good time to figure out where you want to go. So this entire winter time, which oftentimes is kind of a slower time period anyway, I believe is really just good for reflection. Where you've been, what went well, what went wrong, and where you want to go. Now, please excuse me, this is probably going to be a little rough. Obviously, this is unscripted. But as someone who I respect a lot and have learned a lot from, Jack Spirko of the Survival Podcast, says, just go ahead and put it out there. No one's going to watch your first stuff anyway. It'll be a while before you gain any kind of interest. So that's what I'm doing. If you're coming back and looking at this later on, yeah, rough start. Anyway, I've been thinking back. 2019 was not a bad year for me. My wife and I, Maiva, have strengthened our relationship a lot. We have grown as a couple. I mean, yes, we're not nearly perfect or anything like that, but in doing so, we have become closer, definitely, than we were. This is our 7th year of marriage, either our 8th or 9th year together, and overall, I'm really looking forward to this year to spend with my wife. My daughter and I have also continued to grow with our relationship. She's actually turning 17, or she turned 17 in December. So, and I am extremely proud of her and what she does. Her artwork is amazing. She actually thinks for herself. And in my personal opinion, is a very mature, very beautiful young woman. In regards to where I want to go, currently I'm gainfully employed at a trailer manufacturer, primarily doing wire harnesses and things of that nature, though I do have some proficiency in other parts of building the trailer. And it's been a pretty good job. I make decent money. I mean, I'm not getting rich by any means by it, but then again, very few people actually get rich working for someone else. And working for someone else is always a risk. I'm looking to make the owners of the company rich, which I have no problem with. More power to them. I am not one who poo-poos on business owners, especially when by working for them I'm able to cover my bills. So no hate there. But the reality is, working for someone else, you are always at their mercy. And especially when you are down on the production line like I am, you never truly know where things are. The plant manager at the plant I work at one business meeting, company meeting, where they brought us all in, fed us food and that kind of stuff, went on and on about how great we were doing as a company, as a plant, etc. Then before the next quarterly meeting, they reduced force by 15, 13 laid off, and 2 people who left the company voluntarily that weren't going to be replaced. So, in that regards, it is just one of those things where you just truly do not know where you're going. And as the old book goes, you need to smell your cheese. And while the cheese of the company that I'm at doesn't stink, I am totally at their will and mercy. Are they going to do another set of layoffs? Am I going to be caught up in that layoff? How is the company really doing? And Maiva and I, my wife, are constantly thinking about the fact that we need to be doing things to build in resiliency into our lives. That if I do get laid off, which I have been laid off before, where it's not the end of the world. And ideally, where I'm not working for someone else. It's only working for someone else if she chooses to. Currently, she is employed contract style for a company that she actually does get to do something that she loves and she feels is her calling. She truly gets to help people, and she's good at it. I'm pretty good at my job. But I want to get to the point where I own my own company or companies, where I have residual income. But I'm not the kind of person where I just kind of like want to retire and sit on a beach somewhere or sit in the mountains. I am the kind of person where I would still want to do something, even if I just don't want to have to worry about money while I do it. And I actually have several ideas. This YouTube channel, well, if it ever does become successful, I might monetize it. But YouTube is not one of my goals as a primary source of income. Anything I get from that would be supplementary. Now, supplementary money is nice. I'm definitely not going to knock that. Money is money. But I do want to start a few businesses, and I actually have a few businesses that, while currently not incorporated in any way, shape, or form, I am working towards. So let's go ahead and start with my biggest idea first. The thing that I'm working towards, and this isn't something I'm necessarily going to probably be able to start immediately. But I am going to be working towards it, and I am going to be building my knowledge. And where possible, building my skills. Obviously, the difference between knowledge is something that's just intellectual, where skills are something you actually can do. And that would be my ranch. I want to have a ranch. I want to raise cattle, primarily beef cattle, though definitely dairy cattle are not out of the question, among other things, but primarily a cattle ranch. As far as to why that, as opposed to any other kind of agriculture, mostly that's what speaks to me. And as my grandmother used to say, man proposes and God disposes. So who knows what I'll actually end up with. But now just straight up, I do have religious beliefs. I do believe in God. I do believe in Jesus Christ. And that does affect the way I look at life and the way I will present. This is not meant to be a religious channel. This is not meant to be preachy or anything of that sort. But religion is part of my life, and this vlog is about my life. That being said, I do not consider myself to be a particularly good follower. I am not. There are things I need to work on. Just straight up honest. In regards to my religious practices and things that I am working on. But relax, I might mention God, but I am not intending to turn this into any kind of a religious podcast. or vlog. Anyway, but I've prayed, and I do think that is the direction that I should be moving. Whether that is the final destination He wants me at, I don't know. But I do believe that that is a direction I should be moving. But obviously that takes a lot of resources that I don't currently have access to. But instead of just sitting there saying, okay, well, I need this or that or the other before I can proceed, I'm going to kind of take a look at what I do have and move from there. Things I do have. I have access to YouTube and the internet. And there are a lot of great channels about agriculture, sustainable agriculture, things of that nature that I'm watching. I just recently discovered Our Wyoming Life, which is actually a guy who did become a rancher. Just discovered it, watched a few of his videos. So far, I'm liking it. And it's about him becoming a rancher, going from a corporate job. So far, that one is really catching my attention, just because it's very directed at what I want to do. One I've been watching for a while is Justin Rhodes' channel, and he has an interesting style. Some people will like it, some people won't. It's very... what is the right word for this? He jumps around a lot. Just like in life, he'll be talking and then something will come up and the conversation will take a detour. And his editing reflects that. But it's a very good channel, a lot of good information, and you actually see both his successes and his failures, which is something that I like and I want to incorporate into my channel. This isn't all of his successes with all of his failures edited out. Things go wrong on farms and ranches, and he shows it. He messes up, and he full-on takes responsibility and shows it. He also shows a lot of his personal life. And you'll get a bit of that on this channel too. In fact, probably a lot of it. Obviously, being respectful for my daughter and my wife's privacy, what they do and don't want shown. They are individuals, and I believe that they should have say on what I share of their life on this channel. So you'll probably see more of me than you will ever see of them, but this is my channel, so that's appropriate. So my ranch, right now what I'm focusing on is primarily building up my knowledge, and then where possible building up the skills of the things that I'll need to do on the ranch, which I'm already kind of doing. I'm learning how to build things. I'm learning how to do other things. Alright, so that's my ranch, which I have tentatively named Red Riding Hood Ranch. And I am pretty sure that name will stick because it has meaning within my family. Side story, like I said, this is going to be a stream of consciousness vlog. I have, I'm not sure if you can see them, particularly a large incisors, or canines, I think that actually is what they're called. And when I first met my daughter, she was 8. And she was really into wolves. She loved wolves. And I was on a date with Maiva, and we had brought Tiade along. Tiade is my daughter. And my wife, as we were walking along, said to the daughter, "Hey, look, he's got sharp teeth. He's a wolf just like you." And from that moment, wolves have become kind of a symbol of our family, and she even calls me Wolfie. And that was even before I had the beard. Now, going along with that, and sometimes she refers to me as a big bad wolf, just because I kind of have that sense of humor, and I kind of relate to the big bad wolf, and etc., etc. And so I started calling her my Little Red Riding Hood, and Tiade my pup. And so Red Riding Hood Ranch is in reference to that. Not to mention, my wife also had red highlights in her hair for a period when we were first dating, so that also kind of fit. Anyway, so the other business, the one I'm actually working on kind of right now, things I can actually do with, is Ironfound Metalworks. Ironfound being a play on my name, Finn Dyson, which in German translates to find iron. Which apparently, according to Ancestry.com's name definition, name origin feature, is a blacksmithing name. And I am a blacksmith. I do things. I am actually more of an apprentice blacksmith, apprentice to a guy named Matt, who is actually a pretty good blacksmith. And I got into that. I've always enjoyed the concept of blacksmithing. And, I've tried it out a little bit on my own. But then I ended up moving to a place where I couldn't do it. And thinking about that, I'm like, I really want to get back into blacksmithing. I really want to get in blacksmithing. I can't do it here. How can I do it? Then it occurred to me, I live in Utah. There are a ton of historical places around here, and historical places that you can go and visit and do demonstrations and stuff like that. So I did a little bit of research, and I found Provo Pioneer Village. I walked in there, did a quick tour, and that's actually where I met Matt. And I talked to him and said, hey, can I volunteer here? I want to learn how to blacksmith. And he said, yeah. And so I started volunteering at Provo Pioneer Village, learning how to blacksmith. So advantages and disadvantages to that. Obviously, I can only go there when they're open. But I'm perfecting my craft, and I don't have to pay for the materials that I'm crafting, both the coke that we use in our forge and the metal. Now, most of the things I do blacksmith stay at the village as demonstration pieces and presentation pieces. But I am allowed to bring some of it home and to work on it, and especially if I provide my own metal, I can blacksmith whatever I want as long as it's relatively historically accurate. And which is another quote-unquote limitation, which I don't really see as a limitation, but it is one of those things where everything I do while the village is open needs to be period correct, including the tools I use, which means no electric grinders or anything like that. And so as far as knife making, which I've made a few knives, primarily I do the rough forging, the rough shaping there, a little bit of file work, and then I bring the knife home and use an angle grinder and whatever else I have at my disposal to do that, just because, while it is completely possible to do it without power tools, people have been doing it for centuries, millennia actually, it's not a lot of fun, in my opinion. It can be therapeutic, where you just sit down, put on some music or whatever, or even just sit there in the silence and hand sand. And a lot of people actually do find that quite enjoyable. I'm not one of them. I do find joy in the process and mostly the product of making that knife or whatever it is that needs to be hand finished. I find pleasure in that. So I'm not saying I totally hate hand sanding and hand finishing stuff, but I definitely prefer the hot work. Anyway, tangent aside. I am also currently going to Mountain Land Technical College at night and attending their welding course. I'm behind where I should be, so I definitely need to work on getting caught up and getting more proficient. Right now I'm currently working on what is now termed gas metal arc welding, GMAW, and what pretty much the entire world knows as MIG, metal inert gas welding. And I actually am enjoying that. and I believe that when I incorporate that into Ironfound Metalworks, it will actually allow me to make some money. And that's the goal of Ironfound Metalworks, is to allow me to enjoy my craft, my blacksmithing primarily, but also fabricating and making things, and to make some money, because it is a business. Next is Blackwell Publishing. Blackwell Publishing is basically my writing. I don't intend to be a full-on publishing house. It's more of a name I had made when I thought about becoming my own publishing house. And I might do self-publishing, but basically right now I'm working on like short stories and eventually novels. Everything I have right now is partial first draft stuff, but that's also something I can work on right now and actually create product right now. Like Ironfound Metalworks, I can create product right now. And that's what I need to focus on right now, is doing what I can with what I have. And that's something I can do right now. And I enjoy writing. I enjoy the process of creating stories. It's one of the reasons why I love Dungeons & Dragons. And so I am also working on that. And also thinking about ways I can maybe monetize like my short stories. More to come on that later. Another one that I'm just starting to come into, and this is both hobby level, something I can do right now, and something I can possibly, emphasis on possibly, make some money at. And as I just mentioned, I like playing Dungeons & Dragons. I do have a group, and I run a home game as well. Now, I just bought my first mini for my character, Reki Jotun, and is a Dragonborn sorcerer. I went down to my local game store, Dragon's Keep, and I've been actually hitting them find a Dragonborn sorcerer mini. Couldn't find it. They did point out that they had a Dragonborn fighter who had a sword that had magical energy / flames coming off of it, and that almost looked like a spell effect. So I went ahead and bought that, painted it up, removed most of the parts that were very clearly swordish, such as the quillons and the pommel, and it actually does kind of look like a flame or a spell effect, though coming off at a weird angle. And I enjoy painting it. And I also have a pet in the game of a pseudo dragon. Painted that up. Bought one of those and painted that up, and I enjoyed it. It is by no means masterwork, but actually I think it looks pretty good. And my wife, who is famous for not saying things just to inflate my ego, so praise from her actually does mean something, actually said it looked really good. Obviously, me being the artist or the craftsperson or craftsman on it, I can see all the flaws, but I think most people wouldn't. And the thought occurred to me is, you know what? A lot of people want minis, but are either intimidated or just don't have the time or desire to paint their own. And if I can buy a mini for relatively inexpensive, which I can, I do have a good supplier in Dragon's Keep, and I can paint them up with material I already have, and paint is not that expensive. I already have brushes, because like I said, my daughter and my wife are both outstanding artists. They won't think so, but they are. And so we actually have a lot of different types of paints and paintbrushes and things like that around the house. So I spent no money on paint or paintbrushes and still got a pretty good product just from what we had laying around the house. But if I can supply that need of pre-painted minis that I can then sell on like eBay or whatever, then that's a way I can make a little bit of money with a hobby. And I don't need access to a forge or anything like that. I just need access to the paint, which I already have. and getting more paint. Like I said, it won't be terribly expensive. Eventually I might upgrade to nicer paints than I'm using right now, but right now the stuff I have is working pretty good. And and if I can keep on going with that stuff, then I can, maybe make a few dollars. Not a ton, but a few dollars here and there. And every dollar helps. Okay, so those are my primary businesses that I am working either on or towards. As far as my personal life, one of my main goals in my personal life is to become a better person, a better man, a better husband, a better father. All of those are very, abstract and that kind of stuff. But I have certain things. There's a few books that I've read that have been very influential. And first off, I want to give a shout out to another one of my mentors, Kevin Woolley of Woolley & Woolley Insurance, for selling life insurance. And, well, I didn't make pretty much any money on that, because I'm not really a people person. I am one where there are individuals I like and want to hang out with. But the idea of just constantly being around people, I don't. And I hate phones. And so the idea of constantly having to be on the phone trying to book meetings, I honestly put that off and put that off and put that off. And obviously, if you're not setting appointments, you're not going to make any money in insurance or any kind of sales. You do need to get yourself out there. But I learned a ton while I was in that process. And, in sales, and especially like insurance sales, you're going to get far more no's than you ever do get yeses. And so it's a hard business to be in, though a very profitable business if you do it well. And as one of the things that really struck home for me is reading. Constantly reading, good informational books, nonfiction, or fiction with a purpose. And so even though I've been out of insurance for a while, coming back to some of the things I learned, I've started reading again. And one of the books that influenced me a lot was The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And reading is basically the concept of The Miracle Morning was this guy wanted to be more and more successful. And so he started looking at what did very successful people do? What were their things? And he basically compiled a list. And one of the main ones on there was to read. And so I've been reading a lot. And, technically I have been listening to Audible a lot, audiobooks. Just because the nature of my work, I am to the point where, it takes a little bit of thought of exactly where I place things, or remembering exactly how to wire a certain trailer. But once that's figured out, it's mostly just rote. And so I can listen to something and do my job quite efficiently. And so I've been listening to audiobooks, both fictional and non-fictional. And like I said, very few people are actually going to watch this, especially considering I'm already at 30 minutes pretty much, and this is just a video of me rambling. More for my record than probably for it's going to do anyone else any good. Anyways, as I was, reading a lot of these books, I want to improve. I want to become a better person, and I want to be able to provide for my family better. Money in and of itself isn't that important to me. However, money helps provide for the wants and the needs of the family. And I want to be able to provide for my family and for myself and be able to live comfortably. I probably, even if I had billions upon billions of dollars, I don't see myself owning a mansion. But I'd like to own a nice, comfortable house. And I like it to be large enough that I could have family over for, holidays, special occasions, and everyone to be able to comfortably fit into the house. So, not a small house, but not a mansion. And that takes money. I like to be able to provide food for my family. And while I do intend on eventually growing more and more of my food, there are certain things I just either won't be able to or have no interest in growing myself. And, to provide those items of food, that takes money. I like having my truck. But a truck without gas doesn't do any good. And right now I have payments on my truck. So that takes money. And so the whole goal of me with these businesses is to create resiliency, redundancy, and to provide the money I need to be able to do the things I want to do. Now, fortunately, provided it turns out that I actually like ranching, and so far, I like metalwork. I really like metalwork. I'll actually be able to get into a position where I'm doing things that I actually enjoy for the most part. There's always going to be stuff you don't like. Going through and hand sanding for hours upon hours to get a blade just right, is rewarding, but not necessarily enjoyable for me. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and end this blog because I think I've rattled on for long enough. Right now, I'm at just under 33 minutes, about to turn to 33 minutes. But I'll probably vlog you more. And anyone who does see this, I wish you well. I'm going to try and work on my dreams. Alright. Fin Dyson out.